This is a vending machine at the beach here in Da Nang, Vietnam. There's no vandalism. Nobody has attacked this Sprite machine.
Of course not. What did the Sprite machine do to them?
Nobody has tried to rob it. There's a lot of vending machines just like this all throughout Da Nang. This is public exercise equipment that anybody can climb onto and use.
Looks like playground equipment to me. Actually, I kind of like the idea of playground equipment for adults.
Over here, we have a public foot washing station.
Also known as a faucet.
Works just fine. It's been there for years. Here in Vietnam, there are lots of public equipment that we can use collectively.
Okay, we have those same things here. I mean, not the playground equipment. What's your point?
But people are not vandalizing and attacking the equipment. Now, one of the big excuses not to provide resources like this to communities in the USA.
We do have those things. Vending machines are outside every Walmart and rest stop. Water faucets are all around. Okay, not the playground equipment, but again, what's the point?
Is this myth that we can't have nice things in the USA because of the tragedy of the commons.
What? What does any of that have to do with the tragedy of the commons?
Now, this is a feudal myth that has been embedded into our collective social consciousness, and it goes all the way back to the times when peasants had common land. The nobles wanted to take possession of that land and enclose it and make it their own private property. They used this tragedy of the commons myth to justify that accumulation of wealth and private property.
What? No! Where did you get that from? The term tragedy of the commons comes from 1968. It's literally as old as me. It's the title of a Garrett Hardin article published in the journal Science. He formalized the concept and the term based on a lecture by William Foster Lloyd, who had described a similar concept but didn't use the phrase. That was in 1833. But the Enclosure Movement happened in the late 16th to early 17th centuries, 200 years before Floyd's lecture.
And it's used today by capitalists to prevent the people from getting access to basic, cool, functional things like public exercise equipment.
What does exercise equipment have to do with the tragedy of the commons? The tragedy of the commons has nothing to do with vandalism. It's about the allocation of scarce resources.
The only reason that vandalism occurs in extremely impoverished, miserable cities is because the people in those cities don't feel served, they don't feel heard.
No, it's because they're criminal scum.
Here in Vietnam, the social consciousness is much more collective.
Are you trying to say that there's no vandalism in Vietnam? Why? Because you were able to show us a handful of cherry-picked examples? Why don't we just look at the news instead? Vandalism is a huge problem in Vietnam, and it's just getting worse. I easily found 3 big stories about it. Let's see, this first link from just 2 weeks ago says, recent incidents involving vandalism and theft at various historical and cultural sites across Vietnam have sparked public concern and media outcry. Among the most serious was the illegal excavation of Emperor Le Tuc Dong's tomb. Whoa! Actually dug the guy up! And desecration of royal tombs in Hua. They mention numerous other sites as well, vandalized with graffiti and waste stuffed into pipes and cannons. There's also the theft of a lot of historical, cultural, and public items. Over in the Son Tra Peninsula, a story from February talks about defacement and graffiti, even on the trunks of coconut trees, even covering warning signs. Safety mirrors placed at corners for the safety of motorists have also been vandalized. And I found one from May about the vandalism of a Nguyen Dynasty throne at Tai Hua Palace. In that case, there were questions about the placement of the security team and their response. Yes, these places have security teams. They're all policed. So you don't see vandalism in Vietnam, except for all the times you do.
We used to have that in the USA where I'm from. It has eroded substantially because people don't feel bought into our society, and people are conditioned by the ruling class to believe that it's human nature to be greedy and selfish and indulgent. We are convinced to believe in the tragedy of the commons, and so we act that ideology out.
I have no idea where you're getting this crap from. The tragedy of the commons explains things like Plymouth Plantation, which, as I've covered several times, experienced famine while they kept property in collective, but as soon as they let families have their own section of farmland and keep what they grow, they suddenly became prosperous. This guy reminds me of one of those religious lunatics who say that, without God, what stops you from raping and murdering a bunch of people? Like them. To him, I say, if you're actually making that argument, you're the one with a problem, pal! Stop projecting it onto the rest of us! But that's socialists for you.
The real tragedy is capitalism, because capitalism prevents us from having ownership over our communities.
Capitalism is the only thing that does allow it. Capitalism is what put a stop to the enclosure you mentioned. Are you completely ignorant? Wait a minute. You're a socialist. Of course you are.
By the way, if we look around, you don't have to take me at my word for this. You can come to Vietnam and see it for yourself.
I think the news reports speak a lot more clearly than you do.
There are no cops at this beach.
Liar! I just covered stories showing there were, and they were powerless to prevent the vandalism.
But what the Vietnamese did is they rose up, they had a revolution, they seized command over their own society, they built a society that they had collective ownership of.
Meanwhile, in this little place called reality, Vietnam is a mixed economy leaning towards the capitalist side. It scores moderately free on the Index of Economic Freedom. According to the index, Vietnam's economy is becoming more market-oriented. However, despite partial privatization of state-owned enterprises, liberalization of the trade regime, and increasing recognition of private property rights, institutional shortcomings still discourage more sustained development. The regulatory framework remains inefficient. There is no minimum capital requirement, but starting a business is costly. The labor market remains rigid and controlled, and informal labor activity is considerable. Monetary stability is relatively well maintained despite inflationary pressure.
And that's why we see all this nice stuff here today. That's why things are always getting better here in Vietnam.
It's getting better because you're becoming more capitalist!
And the only way to combat this false consciousness of tragedy of the commons is to build a working class movement that seizes meaningful power in our society so that we can take ownership of our society the way that Vietnamese people have taken ownership of theirs.
Yeah, you guys tried that once. It was a complete and abject failure, just like the same movement was in North Korea. But since the 1990s, Vietnam has made steady progress in making their economy freer and freer, becoming more and more capitalist and becoming a more prosperous country as a result. Idiots like NonCompete want to drag Vietnam back into the muck and mire of socialist impoverishment. Please stop listening to him! So thanks for watching. Please hit like and subscribe, leave a comment, and go to donate.bogosity.tv to keep me doing what I do. And check out all the great content here, like this video selected just for you.